We'll cover the following topics in the spotlight. First of all, we'll take a look at the issues that were addressed in PERM 28 and the changes that were introduced to address those issues. Then we'll take a closer look at how these updates can be used in the following areas of NSC reporting. Reporting program level enrollment status effective date changes, identifying and reporting NSC programs using the NSC 5-point match criteria, and finally, we'll look at return from leave of absence reporting. Issues addressed by this update. First issue addressed by this update involves program level enrollment status effective date reporting. Prior to PERM 28, the consolidated statistics process always reset the program level enrollment status effective date to the term begin date in the first statistics period for a term. In this sense, the term begin date functioned as a baseline date for calculating program level status changes, as it does for the overall enrollment status in consolidated statistics. This is the status that NSC refers to as the campus level status. In this simple example, a student starts out as full-time in the first NSC statistics period for fall 2022. Thereafter, the student drops to half-time and is reported in the next fall 22 statistics period as half-time for Program 1, with an enrollment status effective date of September 12th, 2022. The student subsequently enrolls for spring 2023 as half-time. As we can see, the consolidated statistics process resets the enrollment status effective date to the term begin date, which in this case is January 23rd, 2023. In this scenario, NSC is expecting that the enrollment status effective date should be the date the student dropped to half-time. That's September 12th, 2022 in this case, because the program level enrollment status effective date should be based on the entirety of a student's enrollment history. This next issue has been reported where customers have multiple CS plans mapping to the same NSC program. The consolidated statistics process uses academic plan table attributes to identify if a plan should be reported as an NSC program. NSC credential is derived using the financial aid credential cross-reference feature. When a plan is identified as an NSC program, the plan zip code is used as the identifier for that program. Some customers have reported receiving error reports from NSC in scenarios where a student has multiple active plans that are mapped to the same zip code and NSC attributes. The consolidated statistics process always reports each plan up to a maximum of 6 as a distinct NSC program regardless of zip code. Interpretations of this error condition differ across institutions, so there's a need to provide customers with the ability to control whether to continue in this way or to match and consolidate plans that share the same zip code and other NSC attributes. This final issue involves the reporting of program start date when a student returns from a leave of absence. The consolidated statistics process resets the student's program level start date to the effective date of their return. In this example, the student is placed on a leave of absence as of 12/12/21 and returns from the leave of absence on 8/29/22. In this case, the consolidated statistics process would reset the student's program start date to 8/29/22. This will result in an error when this data is submitted to NSC, since the student's program start date should not change, and NSC is expecting the start date to be reported as 8/29/20. Before we take a closer look at how we will tackle these issues, a quick word on how we got here. The CS development team worked closely with the HUG Student Records Advisory Group to get a broad sense of the reporting issues that customers were facing and to get their input on how to handle these requirements going forward. Once our approach was finalized, we worked with a group of customers to test the changes over several iterations and incorporated their feedback along the way. We also consulted with our NSC representatives along the way to ensure that these changes would address these issues going forward. What has CS delivered to address these issues? We have introduced several enhancements to the consolidated statistics feature to address the 3 issues we've just reviewed. These changes were delivered in a bug fix posted in early December 2022, and the changes were also included in PERM 28. The new functionality is enabled by a set of configuration options at the institution level. These new options, located on the Academic Institution 3 page, allow you to activate new processing for program level enrollment status effective date, students with multiple NSC programs, and leave of absence reporting. We'll take a closer look at how each of these options work later in this video. It should be stressed that the consolidated statistics process for NSC reporting will behave as it currently does, that is in pre-PERM 28 mode, until the configuration options are activated. There will be no changes until those options are activated. You also have the option of processing consolidated statistics using different options than those defined on the institution table. When the run control has a statistics period with an NSC type, the institution table options default in but can be changed for that run. This allows you to use different options for different populations of students. And this option was delivered in PUM image 29. The consolidated statistics generator COBOL has also been modified, and this new processing is enabled by the options we just looked at. When the options are activated, the consolidated statistics process will evaluate a student's consolidated statistics history to determine a true program enrollment status date. If a new date is determined, this becomes a baseline date for future NSC reporting so that the process won't need to reevaluate the student's history every time it runs. If the multiple plans or zip code keys option is activated, the process will use NSC 5-point matching criteria to consolidate CS plan data when multiples are found on a student's record. Finally, the return from leave of absence option will use the original program start date of a student's return from leave of absence if that return date is within the specified number of days. A new page has been added to the student consolidated statistics component. The NSC Data Elements tab allows you to view a student's NSC program data for a statistics period. The page returns data from the SSR_STD_CON_ST2 table. This data wasn't previously available on a page. And you can also edit this data by taking an override action, and we'll take a closer look at that later in this video. The data is presented in the table over two tabs, displaying a row for each distinct NSC program reported for the statistics period, up to a maximum of 6 rows. The General Information tab includes the identifiers for the program, such as zip code and NSC attributes, and the plan description also displays. The Statistics tab displays the data that was calculated for the student's programs for the statistics period, including program start date, enrollment status, and enrollment status effective date. There are 3 other important columns on this tab. Enrollment data adjusted. If this is selected, this means the enrollment status date has been adjusted based on an evaluation of the student's consolidated statistics history. Process message. This column displays important data about how the process handled the student's program level data, including the following values. Legacy data. You'll see this for any statistics period that you generate with the Pi28 code where the new processing options were not enabled. This value is not stored. Success. This means the process completed successfully using the new code, but no adjustments were made after evaluating the student's history. Same SIP merge. This is a sign if NSC 5-point matching criteria is enabled and 2 or more plans are matched. We'll take a look at how this works in detail later in this video. Same SIP found would be assigned if matching is not enabled and the process finds matching plans. Incomplete data. This value means that the enrollment status effective date was recalculated, but the student's career term data includes a term row with a term value that is less than the earliest available row of data for the student in historical student consolidated statistics. This might happen if you run the process for a student with a term row for, say, spring 2016, but the student has only 5 years' worth of consolidated statistics history starting in fall 2019, say. Date based on term data. This status is used when the process found discrepancies in the historical statistics data and used student car term or student enroll data to evaluate a revised enrollment status effective date. Date based on as of date. This means the process was unable to calculate revised enrollment status effective date using historical statistics data or by evaluating student car term or student enroll, in which case the process will use the as of date for the statistics period. Third column, show history. This button accesses the history by SIP keys page, which we'll take a look at next. This new subpage provides a view of the data reported for an individual plan and SIP code, presenting the data in descending date order. You can use this page to review a student's enrollment status history before and after you have implemented the changes in Pi28. So you'll be able to get a view of the student's history before and after you have implemented these changes. Enrollment date adjusted and process messages will be populated if you have activated the new enrollment status date logic, and we'll take a look at some examples later in this video. As mentioned earlier, you can edit the data on the Data Elements page by taking an override action. This action is available to users with update correction access to the page. The override action will allow you to update the reported values for zip code and zip code year, NSC classification, program length and code, Title IV program weeks, program begin date, SULA indicator, and enrollment status and effective date. Any values you enter here will be used in the NSC extract that you generate for the statistics period. Let's take a closer look at how these changes will affect program-level enrollment status effective date reporting. Updated processing for enrollment status effective date is enabled when all the following conditions are met. The academic statistics period being processed as a statistics type of N for NSC. The consolidation trigger is consolidation date. And the institution table or run control enrollment status date option is set to use the date the enrollment status date was determined. When enabled, the process will evaluate a student's consolidated statistics history to determine a true program enrollment status effective date, cycling through the history to determine the earliest instance of a student's current enrollment status. For example, if the process is run for fall 2022 and the student status is determined to be full-time for that period, the process will cycle through any available statistics period to determine when the student first reached full-time status. If the student had been consistently reported as full-time in all available statistics period back through the fall of 2020, for example, that date, that is the fall 2020 begin date, will be used as the new enrollment status effective date in the fall 2022 statistics period. If there are values entered in the terms of missing enrollment status date, the process will not consider terms of those categories in the evaluation, and we'll take a look at how that works in an example shortly. These changes will enable institutions to recalculate program-level enrollment status effective dates and to use that recalculated date going forward. If the new processing method is enabled, future consolidated statistics processing will use the most current recalculated row in a student's consolidated statistics history as the baseline for future enrollment status effective date reporting. The process will not recalculate or reevaluate a student's entire consolidated statistics history on subsequent runs once the baseline is established. Let's look at some before and after examples to see how the process might adjust enrollment status effective date in different scenarios. In this first example, looking at data created prior to this update, we can see that the student first enrolled in the fall of 2019 as full-time. That's the 0830 statistics period, and sustained that full-time status through the fall of 2022. This next slide shows data for the same student where they used the date the enrollment status was determined option was enabled for the first spring 2023 run. The process determined that the student is currently full-time and then cycled through the statistics history to find the earliest date prior to spring 2023 where the student's enrollment status was full-time. Since there are no breaks or fluctuations, the true enrollment status effective date is determined to be August 30th, 2019, and that is reported as the student's enrollment status effective date for spring 2023. We can see that the enrollment date adjusted flag has also been set to yes with the process message of success. This next example shows a student where enrollment status has fluctuated between full and half-time over the years. This data created prior to the update shows the student's last reported status for fall 2022 as half-time, with an effective date of August 29th, 2022. That's the start date of the term. Prior to that, there were periods of full-time and half-time enrollment. With the use the date the enrollment status was determined option enabled for spring 2023, the process determined that the student was currently half-time, but cycled back through the statistics history to find out the true effective date of this half-time status. Although the status fluctuated, the current half-time status started during the spring 2022 term on February 9th and was maintained since that date without breaks. So this is the date that is reported as the effective date of the student's half-time status for spring 2023. As in the previous example, the enrollment date adjusted flag is set to yes. It is likely that you will have students with historical statistics data where there isn't an enrollment status. This might be the case if you term activate students for terms where enrollment isn't required, just summer terms, and those students never actually enroll in courses. In such cases, the student might have been included in the statistics period but excluded from NSC reporting because there was never any enrollment. When the process reevaluates a student's consolidated statistics history with this update, any statistics period where there is no enrollment status is considered a break in enrollment. If the term is not required, this might lead to an incorrect true enrollment status effective date being reassigned. The term with missing enrollment status data option allows you to exclude these statistics periods so they are not seen as a break in enrollment. Let's look at an example. This student's consolidated statistics history, created prior to this update, contains 2 rows for summer terms, 2021 summer and 2022 summer. The student enrolled at half-time in summer 2021, but didn't enroll in summer 2022. Apart from these summer terms, the student has maintained full-time enrollment. As in the previous examples, we've run the process for spring 2023 with the use the date the enrollment status was determined option activated. But we've also identified the summer term category to be skipped when there is no enrollment status data. The student's enrollment status for spring 2023 was determined to be full-time. As we've seen, the process will cycle through the student's statistics history to determine the true effective date. If summer was not being skipped, the process would interpret the missing enrollment status as a break in enrollment and reset the full-time effective date to the next time the student enrolled full-time, which in this case was the fall of 2022. By skipping the summer term where the student didn't enroll, the process actually goes back to the last break in full-time enrollment, which was the half-time enrollment for summer 2021, and resets the enrollment status effective date to the start of the fall 2021, which is when the student resumed full-time status. In this next section, we'll look at how the NSC 5-point matching criteria can be incorporated into your NSC program reporting process. If a student has multiple active plans that map to the same NSC program, these can be consolidated using the NSC 5-point match criteria option. When this option is enabled, the process looks for matches on the following 5 attributes: program zip code, program credential level, program published length, program published length measurement, and program weeks in Title IV academic year. If a student has 2 or more plans or all of the values are the same, these plans will be reported as a single program under one zip code, using the earliest program start date and enrollment status effective date. If you run the process with this option set to no, there is no change to the way the process reports to student plans, and each NSC eligible active plan is reported regardless of matches on the criteria listed, but potential duplicates will be identified. In this example, the student statistics data was created without the matching option being enabled. The General Information tab shows that the student has 3 plans. 2 of these plans, Business Management and Business Law, have the same zip code, NSC credential level, program length, and program length code. Weeks in Title IV academic year doesn't apply since the length code is years. The Statistics tab shows that the Business Management and Business Law plans have different start dates. Enrollment status is the same for all programs, since CS calculates a single enrollment status for a student per statistics period, and that enrollment status applies to all reported programs. This next example shows the same student's NSC program data with 5-point matching enabled. The Business Management and Business Law plans have been consolidated into a single row of data, and you'll notice the plan descriptions are concatenated. Since we combined 2 plans into one NSC program, we use the earlier program start date of the 2 for the consolidated row. The process message same SIP merged is added when the plans are consolidated. In this final section, we'll take a look at the new reporting option we provided for reporting student program start date on a return from leave of absence. A new option has been provided for handling the reporting of program start date when a student returns from leave of absence. When this option is enabled, the process will always use the student's original program start date as long as the student's return date, and that is the effective date of the return from leave of absence action on the student's program stack, is within the if return within criteria defined on the institution table or on the run control. You can use the value of 9999 to always use the original program start date. That concludes this update. You can find additional information in the PeopleBooks updates issued for Pi 28 and Pi 29. There's also a supplemental doc available on My Oracle support, and that's doc ID 2916886.1. Thank you.